Hi folks, Josh Knight the First here with another Ex-Aid replay coming to you with episode 28 of the series. Let's get right into it. So this week wasn't a very action-heavy episode, it was more about moving the plot along, a lot of that happening here, and a lot of interesting things about people's alliances here in this particular episode, particularly revolving around Poppy, but let's go ahead and get started with this episode. So we're shown at the beginning of the episode that both sides are starting to doubt Poppy's alliances. Over on the CR side, Hiro doesn't care very much. If she's a bad bugster, that's better for him, he can just cut her out, that's easy for him. But Emu, he still clearly believes in her, especially from the end of the last episode when he saw her clearly smile at the reconciling between Nico and Taiga. Back over at the Genmu Corporation, though, Poppy is still kind of concerned about things. Clearly she's starting to question things now of her own volition. Nothing's happened to her yet, but we're starting to see that there's cracks in the armor, so to speak. So right after this, we do see a fight between Ex-Aid level 99 and Brave level 3. For some reason, they decided to remember, oh yeah, he does have Dore Mi Fa Bi. We should let him use that again. We should sell that Gashot. That having been said, we have them fighting against, of course, Paradox, and now Poppy getting in on the fight, acting more like her bugster self. The recurring thing that we get for this episode is how much Emu is not playing around with getting Poppy back over to their side, over to the side of good. He says multiple times while he's trying to fight there with Pallad that, you know what, I don't have time for you, I don't have time for games right now, I need to do this, I need to make sure that we get Poppy back over because she doesn't want to be doing this, she doesn't want to fight against humans, she's been helping humans up to this point when you got your claws into her. And the thing of it is, it's really annoying to Pallad that he's saying this. Now admittedly that makes sense for his character up to this point. He's been all about games, about playing games, specifically playing against the best player, who in his eyes would be Emu. Now Hiro's not unaware of this, he's catching this. He sees that there's clearly a fixation that he's got on Emu for some reason bigger than what's being let on here. Now that comes into fruition later on towards the end of the episode, but it's good that Hiro caught that. Now at that very moment, Poppy didn't want to play along with the CR, she was actually causing damage to a human who was playing there as a ride player, but Emu decides, you know what, none of this, we're not having it anymore, I'm going to reprogram you right now. Now that seems to take effect, but not entirely. She seems to have gotten her mind back, but not a whole lot. Enough for her to question for the rest of the episode, and I get it, we've got some time to fill here, but I kind of wish it was a little bit more vague actually, that way there was a little bit more drama building up towards the end of the episode. Now the drama we do get comes from Poppy now starting to have these flashes in her mind, some memories that she doesn't remember having. This gets explained by the other bugsters there at the Genmu Corporation, that she's getting flashes from her original host. The way they explain this is that the bugsters are brought into this world by taking over the host body, basically the person that they're making disappear. The interesting thing about that is we're not shown who Poppy's host was, we just assume it was some female there from the voice we hear in the flashback, but more interesting than that, it seems that Graphite was brought into this world specifically through Saki, who of course, as you guys know from watching, is Brave's girlfriend that was lost before the beginning of the series. Now this is interesting to see, considering that we already kind of dealt with this revenge thing with Graphite and Hiro, specifically when Graphite was defeated earlier in the series and his actor got the flowers. So if they're going to bring that up again, I don't quite get that. We already dealt with it. If Hiro already got past it, the only thing they could do to make it more dramatic is bring Saki back in some form, but it doesn't seem like they're going to do that, so I don't think that's the best way of making Graphite a villain again here in the context of the show at this point. Not to be forgetful of the other writers in the series, we see that Nico and Taiga have teamed up with one goal apparently in mind, and that's to defeat Kamen Rider Chronicle by themselves. And we see that Nico has gained 3 more Gashot trophies since last episode. We're now starting to see there on her costume, we see 3 stars there on the chest piece for the ride player that she is. Now I had been wondering about that ever since we saw the introduction of the ride player design earlier on, why they had those lines across their chest. Apparently for every time you're supposed to defeat a bugster, you get a star for each one that you've gotten. So here we see that she's clearly gotten 3 out of the way. And with Taiga and Nico being the upstanding role models that they are, they have no problem trying to eliminate Poppy. So when they catch her later on towards the end of the episode, they decide that one of them is going to take on Poppy directly, and the other one will scare off the other ride players in the area by firing into the air. Now what's nice to see is that the ride players specifically at this portion of the show are fighting not to win the game, they're just trying to cure themselves of game disease. So it seems that there is even more levels to the people who are playing the game now. Some people are just playing to get out. But when you consider that this week's patient was infected specifically with Poppy's strain of the Bugster virus, it remains to be dealt with that she has to be defeated. So we see all the other riders team up against her while Emu is still contending with Pallad. Now from here, of course, we see that Emu decides to stand in front of her, make sure that nobody else can touch her, while he tries to get through to her in a moral sense. Now, this is important for both of their characters. One, because it shows how dedicated Emu is to her character, not just as Asuna, but as Poppy, as somebody he cares about, and somebody who he recognizes clearly cares about humans. And then as far as Poppy's concerned, we actually get to see her actress stretch here and actually show that emotion, show I'm torn between these two things. I know who I am as a bugster, but I also don't want to hurt humans. I just want to play video games. That's all I wanted. Thankfully though, good wins out, and Emu's words are able to get through to Poppy, and we see the game clear show up above them. Now some people might wonder why it is that they were able to get a game clear without a really good fight. The reason being specifically the Tokimeki Crisis gacha. As we've covered already, Tokimeki Crisis is based off a dating sim, so the power there isn't in fighting or fists, it's in words. So the fact that Emu's words got through to her makes sense given the power she was using. And with that having been dealt with, she can go back to her good old rhythm game self. But the episode's not over yet. We see that Pallad has clearly had enough with Emu blowing him off fight after fight after fight in this episode, wanting that fight, so he decides to go ahead and intervene the only way he knows how, directly. We now have Pallad approaching Emu in a very creepy way, telling him, no, we're destined to fight. You're the only one I can fight because you are me. Now at this point, Hiro recognizes and puts together all of the pieces that he's been fed this entire episode, knowing that Emu's clearly in danger. It comes across a lot like a horror movie when you see all the things around that the main character can't, and you're just yelling at the screen, no, get out of there! And of course, just like a horror movie, Emu turns around to be like, huh, what? And then we have Pallad jump inside of him with that same red eye that we see Emu displaying because of his Bugster virus. A now Pallad-possessed Emu does the one thing that we know Pallad's been wanting to do since he's been so disappointed in Poppy, and gives her a really good smack across the face. Now thankfully the rest of the team is smart enough to recognize that this clearly is an Emu, they saw it happen, they're not in any sort of disbelief, but they know something's wrong. This will lead into next week's episode, where we see that two sides of Emu are fighting, and we see that there's a lot more to the connection between Pallad and Emu than we were originally fed. On top of that, we'll also see the debut of the perfect fighter form for Paradox here in that next episode. So all that having been said, it's nice to see that we have Poppy back on the side of good, on the side of the CR, but I think it's a little cheap how we got there, and I'll go ahead and explain. Up to this point, considering this episode that we just finished watching, she only transformed as an evil writer 3 times, not really showing her as very much of a threat. I do like the fact that there's a female writer, really given 2 if you count Nico, but I think to make her more of a viable threat, she should have been more present in the fights up to this point. She sat out the whole last episode, and here, the 2 fights that she does have, yeah, we saw a little bit of animosity there at the beginning, and here at the end, yeah, clearly she's reconsidering her whole stance on this. I wish they would have done it a little bit more and made it a little bit more heavy and dramatic, but I guess it's worth it to have her back on the side of good. I just wish they would up her involvement in the fights as an actual writer. But that's just my opinion. I want to hear what you guys thought in the comments, so let's go ahead and talk about that. So specifically with Poppy, do you think she should have spent more time as an evil writer, or do you think it's better that they're getting her over to the side of good quicker? Secondly, what about Ride Player Poppy? Do you think she's going to be the one to clear Kamen Rider Chronicle, or do you think that she'll be taken out earlier than that? And lastly, where was Amagasaki? We saw that he was defeated, but he's not dead, so where is he? Crying in a corner? You guys tell me in the comments below. And of course, during the week, you guys can always talk to me over on social media. On Twitter, I'm at JoshKnight1st. This has been episode 28 of Ex-Aid Replay for episode 28 of the series Beyond the Identity. I'm Josh Knight the First. I'll see you guys again next week.